Okay, so dreams and sleep disorders, super quick section, and then we're going to wrap it up. 5 common types of sleep disorders. We have insomnia, sleep apnea, hypersomnia, narcolepsy, and parasomnia. We're going to discuss 1, 3, and 4. Hypersomnia, feeling exhausted after 8 or 10 hours of sleep. Parasomnia is abnormal or unusual behavior during sleep. Don't really think there's a need to expand on those much more than that. That's really all they are. And again, it's not super high yield. But dreaming and its theories. So we have our good friend Freud over there to the right. So dreaming is thought to primarily occur in REM sleep, although there is growing evidence that most people also dream in the NREM stages of sleep as well, specifically stage 2, 3, and 4. So according to Freud, a dream had manifest and latent content. So just like all of Freud's other theories, basically what it is that we have something that we're seeing directly, and then there is always some sort of underlying or symbolic meaning of this content. So he also thought this applied to dreams. He thought that basically when we look at a dream, when we look at the plot, we can analyze it and we can learn about ourselves. So the manifest content of a dream is the explicit plot. He believed that this content was symbolic of underlying concepts of our drives, our fantasies, and conflicts that we may experience in waking life. So he believed that the latent content is what the manifest content was symbolizing. So the latent content is the actual drive or the actual content. And this stuff comes out in dreams because it's difficult for us to express or it's difficult for us to acknowledge during waking consciousness. So Freud believed that this was sort of the subconscious's way of letting out these sort of drives or these conflicts. It was a way for us to express it, subconsciously. There's really not any merit, to these theories. This theory, just along with like psychodynamic theory, a lot of it is even today in universities, it's more so housed in the literature section than it really is the science section. So it's not super evidence-based stuff, but it does have important implications in literature, history, and I'm sure you're going to come across it. So Freud's theory on dreaming, like many of his other theories, as I said, have been surpassed by evidence-based and more likely theories. So dreaming is important, for memory consolidation and cognitive regeneration. Like we've been seeing, that sort of brain activation in REM sleep and the fact that, babies have a lot of it and older adults don't have a lot of it. There's a lot of mounting evidence to support the activation synthesis theory and other theories, other evidence-based theories, utilitarian theories, basically. So some studies in rats have shown that brain activity during REM were associated with increased performance upon awakening with activities associated with the active brain area. So for example, if the activity were running, rats would be running in, their waking consciousness, they would fall asleep. If it was recorded on an EEG that the specific area of the brain, for example, that's associated with running, if that were active during REM sleep, the rat woke up and started doing that same exact activity, started running, there was evidence that it had actually improved the rat's performance for that specific brain area. So that's very interesting. That's, basically just evidence for activation synthesis. And the implications imply that that's true. And really all that theory is, it just suggests that dreams are the byproduct of random brain activation during REM. So basically, it's just a natural thing that your brain does when it's sleeping. That's the way it repairs itself. It sort of test runs everything when you're sleeping. Your muscles are paralyzed, so it's an easy, safe way for your brain to sort of go through the motions. And it just so happens that doing this, it produces dreams. So your brain, your conscious mind sort of strings together this activation of different brain areas, and it sort of puts it together into one dream. So activation synthesis basically just says it's a random byproduct. Dreams aren't really the main event as it is in Freud's theory. They're just sort of a byproduct of our biological brain consolidating and doing what it's supposed to do. Again, and it's opposite of Freud's thought that dreams have inherent meaning. So activation synthesis theory is probably what you would see if dreaming comes up on the MCAT. And again, it's really simple. There's not really much else you need to know beyond that, really. And then sleep disorders really quickly. So the average adult human should spend about 6 to 8 hours per 24-hour period sleeping continuously. Obviously, this isn't always the case. The most common sleep disorder is insomnia. I'm sure a bunch of people watching this have experienced insomnia, or someone that experienced insomnia, and that's the persistent inability to fall and or stay asleep. So it has to be persistent. It's not just one bad night of sleep. It's a condition that is persistent, that's chronic, that is actively interfering with your daily life. So insomnia interferes with the REM and slow wave sleep, and it leads to daytime consequences like irritability, fatigue, drowsiness, specifically decreased cognitive ability, which can be dangerous if you're doing stuff like operating a motor vehicle for a living or operating heavy machinery, if you're a surgeon and operating. So it's not something that's taken lightly, and there are a lot of these sleep disorders. They can bar you from doing certain professions. So inversely, narcolepsy is categorized by sudden periodic sleepiness during the day that usually lasts up to 5 minutes. And it's currently treatable with stimulants. Yeah, there's not much else to know about narcolepsy in terms of the MCAT. It's just sudden periodic sleepiness during the day. It's not normal. And it usually is treated with modest success. It's treated with stimulants. Sleep apnea is the other one of the more common ones. It's a condition in which people stop breathing during sleep. A lot of times people snore when it happens. They'll choke themselves and they'll wake up. Sometimes you can wake up a couple of 100 times in a night and people won't even remember it just because they fall back asleep immediately. But regardless of if you remember it or not, it very, very much interferes with the quality of sleep. And it has a bunch of direct effects on your health. So it's going to increase the individual's chance of developing other comorbidities, high blood pressure, and the incidence of sleep apnea is very closely associated with obesity. So sometimes it has to do with congenital defects, but a lot of times obesity is also a risk factor for sleep apnea. So if an individual is obese and they do have sleep apnea, they'll probably be prescribed like a PAP device. PAP is PAP, it stands for positive airway pressure. And it's just a way to make sure that the patient is getting airflow throughout the night. But that's sort of, like not a temporary fix, but that's sort of an immediate fix. But a more long-term fix usually is the individual would, be advised to lose weight, because a lot of times when an obese individual does lose weight, the sleep apnea tends to resolve.